That was Michael Anthony, okay? 100% dedicated, never did anything to hurt those guys, and they tried to hurt him again and again and again. For Eddie to say he had to show him what to play and had to teach him all those songs, that is the biggest line of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. I was in that band for 11 years. There was never a video camera involved of Eddie showing him what to play.
After years of staying completely silent, Michael Anthony, the former bass player for the legendary rock band Van Halen, has finally broken his silence at 70 years old to reveal the shocking truth about his departure from the band and his chaotic relationship with Eddie Van Halen. This might come as a shock, but you need to hear what Michael finally said about Eddie after all these years of keeping quiet. For many years, Michael kept his mouth shut about the terrible problems he had with Eddie Van Halen, who was the guitar player in the band. He never told anyone the real story about what happened behind the scenes. But now, at 70 years old, he has decided he can't stay quiet anymore. He wants everyone to know the truth about what really went on between him and Eddie, and why he had to leave one of the most famous rock bands in the world. When Michael was a little boy, he learned to love music because of his dad. His father knew how to play the trumpet, which is a musical instrument that makes loud, bright sounds. Because his dad played music, Michael also learned to play the trumpet when he was young. Music was very important in his family, and this helped Michael want to learn more about playing different instruments. Michael was born in a big city called Chicago, but his family moved around a few times. When Michael was young, his family finally moved to a place called Arcadia in California in 1966. This was a very important move because Arcadia was right next to another city called Pasadena. In Pasadena, there lived two brothers named Alex and Eddie Van Halen. These brothers would later become Michael's bandmates in the famous rock band Van Halen. If Michael's family had not moved to Arcadia, he might never have met the Van Halen brothers. When Michael was in school, he liked both music and sports. From 1967 to 1969, he went to a school called Dana Junior High School in Arcadia. At this school, he joined the marching band. A marching band is a group of students who play instruments while walking around, usually during football games or parades. Being in the marching band helped Michael get better at playing music and made him feel more confident about his musical abilities. Michael was also good at sports. He ran in track and field, which means he could run very fast and jump far. He also played baseball, where he was the catcher. The catcher is the person who sits behind the batter and catches the ball when the pitcher throws it. Michael was so good at sports that he could have become a professional athlete, but as he got older, he realized he loved music even more than sports. When Michael went to high school, he decided he wanted to focus only on music. He spent lots of time practicing and trying to get better at playing instruments. This hard work helped prepare him for his future career in music. In 1972, Michael finished high school at Arcadia High School. Soon after graduating, he would meet the Van Halen brothers and join their band. At first, Michael wanted to learn how to play the guitar. But many of his friends already played guitar or drums, so he decided to try something different. He chose to learn the bass guitar instead. A bass guitar looks like a regular guitar but is bigger and makes deeper, lower sounds. One of his friends, Mike Hershey, gave him an electric guitar called a Fender Mustang. Instead of using it as a regular guitar, Michael took off the two highest strings and used it like a bass guitar. Later, his father bought him a real bass guitar and an amplifier, which made the sound louder. Michael looked up to some famous bass players. He really admired Jack Bruce from a band called Cream, John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin, and Harvey Brooks from Electric Flag. He studied how they played and tried to learn from their techniques. Even though Michael was naturally left-handed, which means he normally used his left hand for most things, he learned to play the bass guitar right-handed like most people do. Before joining Van Halen, Michael played in several different bands. His first band was called Poverty's Children. Later, he played in bands called Black Opal, Balls, and Snake. The most important band before Van Halen was Snake. This was a small band with only 3 people, and Michael not only played bass but also sang the main vocals. Snake usually played songs that were made famous by other rock bands, but sometimes they wrote and played their own songs too. Something very interesting happened that led to Michael joining Van Halen. Snake and the Van Halen brothers' early band, which was called Mammoth at the time, often played at the same local concerts. One night, Snake was the opening act for Mammoth at Pasadena High School. This means Snake played first, and then Mammoth played after them. During the concert, Mammoth had a big problem: their PA system stopped working. A PA system is the equipment that makes the music loud enough for everyone in the audience to hear. Without it, nobody could hear the band play. Michael saw that Mammoth was in trouble, so he decided to help them. He let them use Snake's PA system so they could continue their performance. This was a very kind thing to do, and Michael had no idea that this small act of kindness would change his life forever. The Van Halen brothers noticed how helpful and generous Michael was, and they also saw that he was a talented musician. Michael was studying music at Pasadena City College when he met Eddie Van Halen, who was also a student there. At the same time, the Van Halen brothers were looking for a new bass player because their current bass player, Mark Stone, had left the band. Eddie and Alex Van Halen invited Michael to come play music with them to see if he would be a good fit for their band. Even though Michael had heard them play before, he was amazed by how talented they were when they played together. Their energy and skill impressed him so much that he knew right away they were something very special. After they played music together, the Van Halen brothers didn't wait long to make their decision. They asked Michael to officially join their band. Some people say that Michael first talked to Tony Caggiano, who was the guitar player in Snake, to ask for advice. Tony supposedly told Michael that joining Eddie Van Halen would be a great idea because Eddie was becoming known as an amazing guitar player. However, Michael later said on his website that he didn't hesitate at all. He accepted their offer right away. At the time, Michael had been planning to continue his studies at a college in Santa Barbara after finishing at Pasadena City College. But once he became part of Van Halen, everything changed. He was so excited about being in the band that he decided to drop out of school just before he had enough credits to graduate. Instead of finishing college, he put all his time and energy into making music with Van Halen. This was a big decision, but it would soon lead to success beyond what he could have imagined. In 1974, Eddie Van Halen, Alex Van Halen, David Lee Roth, and Michael Anthony officially became known as Van Halen. They had been performing under the name Mammoth, but they found out that another local band was already using that name, so they had to change it. The band worked very hard to become famous, playing in clubs all around Los Angeles and West Hollywood. Their talent was so impressive that Gene Simmons from the famous band Kiss noticed them and helped them record 29 songs as a demo. A demo is a recording that bands make to show record companies how good they are. Their big break came in 1977 when they got a record deal with Warner Brothers, which is a big music company. The following year, on February 10, 1978, they released their first album called Van Halen. This album introduced the band to people all around the world and made them famous. When the band first started, Michael was considered a full member just like everyone else. This meant he got 20% of all the money the band made, including money from selling merchandise like t-shirts and posters. The band's manager, Noel Monk, was also part of this financial arrangement. However, things started to change for Michael in 1984 when problems began to happen within the band. During the tour for their 1984 album, David Lee Roth and the Van Halen brothers put pressure on Michael to sign away all his future songwriting credits and royalties. This meant that Michael would no longer get money from the songs he helped create. The agreement was made retroactively, which means it also applied to songs they had already made, including their 1984 album. According to Noel Monk, the band's manager, this was very unfair to Michael. Monk said that if he had been in Michael's position, he would have refused to sign and would have even skipped the performance that night to make a statement. But Michael didn't argue, he just signed the papers, losing millions of dollars while the other three band members watched him do it. Despite these problems, Michael stayed with Van Halen for many more years. The band released 11 studio albums between 1978 and 1998, plus a live album in 1993 and 2 greatest hits collections during the time Michael was in the band. While he was in Van Halen, Michael also helped other musicians. In 1988, he helped his brother Bobby Lee's band called Asylum Suite make a demo recording. This band had been playing since 1984 and had a lead singer named Michael Thomas Fear. Michael's help allowed them to improve their sound and move forward with their music career. After leaving Van Halen, Michael started playing with Sammy Hagar more often during Hagar's solo tours. He performed as part of 2 of Hagar's bands called the Wabaritas and Los Tres Gusanos. In 2002, Hagar and David Lee Roth went on tour together in what was called the Sans Halen, or Sam and Dave, tour. During this tour, Michael made surprise guest appearances at some concerts. He wasn't the only former Van Halen member to do so. Gary Cherone, another past vocalist for the band, also joined in at times. Sometimes Michael and Cherone even performed together on stage. That same year, Michael teamed up with Hagar, Neil Schon, Dean Castronovo, and Joe Satriani to form a new band called Planet Us. This supergroup allowed him to perform even more frequently with Hagar. Planet Us recorded 2 songs. One of them, Psycho Vertigo, was originally meant to be included on the Spider-Man movie soundtrack, but in the end, the song was not featured on the album. The second song, Peephole, along with Psycho Vertigo, was eventually released on Hagar's 2008 solo album, Cosmic Universal Fashion. At the end of 2003, Eddie and Alex Van Halen decided to bring Sammy Hagar back into the band for a 2004 tour. However, their original plan did not include Michael. They wanted to move forward without him. When Hagar found out, he refused to participate unless Michael was also brought back. Because of this, the Van Halen brothers had no choice but to let Michael return. However, there was a catch: Michael had to accept a new contract with reduced royalties. This contract only lasted for the duration of the tour, meaning Michael was no longer a permanent member of the band. In the summer of 2006, Michael went on tour with Sammy Hagar as part of a band called The Other Half. This group featured Michael and Hagar performing classic Van Halen songs, covering music from both the David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar eras of the band. However, in September 2006, Eddie Van Halen made a big announcement: he had decided to replace Michael with his own son, Wolfgang Van Halen, as Van Halen's new bass player. Then in February 2007, Van Halen announced they would be going on a new tour with their original lead singer David Lee Roth. The tour started on September 27, 2007. Michael later revealed that he only found out about being replaced through the internet. He expressed his frustration, saying he was not happy that they were calling it a Van Halen reunion. He felt that a real reunion would include all the original members, not just some of them. At the official tour press conference, David Lee Roth agreed, stating that this tour was not a reunion but a revision. Despite being left out of the tour, Michael continued performing with Hagar. On February 25, 2007, the 2 musicians appeared together on live national television during a pre-race show for a NASCAR event. During the broadcast, Michael suddenly jumped on stage and performed Hagar's hit song, I Can't Drive 55, alongside him. A few weeks later, on March 12, 2007, Van Halen was officially inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. However, the event was not attended by most of the band members. Eddie Van Halen was in rehab at the time, while Alex Van Halen and David Lee Roth chose not to appear. Only Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar showed up to accept the honor, making them the only former or current members of Van Halen present at the ceremony. Despite the professional disagreements, Michael found some comfort after Eddie's death. He reconnected with Wolfgang Van Halen, attending a performance of Wolfgang's band Mammoth WVH in 2023. This meeting provided Michael with a sense of closure, allowing him to honor the musical legacy he shared with Eddie while mending relationships with the Van Halen family. Now, at 70 years old, Michael Anthony has finally decided to share the shocking truth about his departure from Van Halen and his difficult relationship with Eddie. According to Michael, one major reason for the tension was the way Eddie treated him. Eddie often criticized his skills as a musician and singer, telling him that he wasn't good enough and needed to be shown exactly what to play. Michael recalled that Eddie used to say that he had to tell him every note to play. These constant negative comments hurt Michael's confidence over time. Michael admitted that it made it look like Eddie never believed in him. He explained that it wasn't just about playing music. Eddie's criticism started to feel personal. Michael felt like no matter how hard he tried, he was never seen as good enough in Eddie's eyes. This difficult relationship played a big part in why he eventually left the band. According to Michael, Eddie even told him that if he ever left the band, his career would be over. These words hurt, but Michael refused to let them break his spirit. Despite Eddie's harsh words, Michael's love for music remained strong. He admitted that he has been playing music all his life and he won't let another person's opinion ruin it for him. He wanted to keep doing what he loved no matter what anyone said. Even though many people assumed he left Van Halen to join Chickenfoot, Michael made it clear that this was not the case. According to Michael, the situation in the band had simply become too difficult. The tensions with Eddie and other internal issues made it clear that things were no longer working out. He wasn't given a choice to leave on his own terms. Instead, it felt like he was being pushed out. After the fallout, he started working on side projects with Sammy Hagar, which eventually led to the formation of Chickenfoot. However, Michael insists that starting Chickenfoot was never about leaving Van Halen. He and Sammy were simply looking for a way to enjoy making music again. He wanted to move forward not because he was abandoning Van Halen, but because he still had a passion for playing. Despite the difficult experiences with Eddie, Michael remained dedicated to his music, proving that he didn't need Van Halen to continue his career. He chose to focus on what mattered most, his love for playing bass and making music. Looking back on his time with Van Halen, Michael chooses to focus on the positive aspects. He expressed gratitude for the years he spent with the band and the music they created together. Michael's departure from Van Halen may not have been on his own terms, but he has continued to pursue his passion for music. Even after the difficult experiences with Eddie and the band, he remains focused on